In the kingdom of Aderé, there lived a young woman named Nia. She was poor, humble, and known throughout the village for making beautiful baskets with her hands. Every morning before sunrise, Nia would sit outside the small clay house she shared with her elderly aunt and weave baskets until her fingers ached. She had no wealth, no expensive clothes, no powerful family name, and as far as Nia knew, she had no connection to the royal family. Her mother had died when she was very young, leaving Nia with almost no memories of her. The only thing her mother had left behind was a small bracelet decorated with cowrie shells. Nia wore it every day. She never knew that the little bracelet was about to change her life forever. One morning, while Nia was selling her baskets in the village marketplace, an elderly woman stopped at her stall. The woman picked up one of the baskets and studied Nia's face carefully. Then she told Nia that she had her mother's hands. Nia immediately became curious. She wanted to know whether the woman had known her mother, but before she could ask another question, the sound of royal drums echoed through the marketplace. Everyone turned toward the palace road. A royal messenger had arrived. He carried a golden banner bearing the symbol of King Adekunle. The messenger announced that a great royal festival would be held at the palace in 3 days. But there was something unusual about the announcement. Every unmarried woman in the kingdom was commanded to attend. Nobody understood why. Nia certainly didn't. She had never even stepped inside the palace, but her aunt insisted that she attend. 3 days later, the kingdom of Aderé was transformed. Drums filled the streets. Dancers performed in the palace courtyard. Hundreds of people gathered beneath colorful decorations as unmarried women from across the kingdom arrived wearing their finest clothes. Nia felt completely out of place. The other women wore beautiful fabrics, gold jewelry, and elaborate hairstyles. Nia wore her simple mustard yellow and brown dress. Her sandals were old, and around her wrist was the same little cowrie shell bracelet she had worn since childhood. She considered leaving, but before she could turn around, the royal drums suddenly stopped. The entire courtyard fell silent. King Adekunle appeared on the palace balcony. He was a powerful man in his 40s, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in magnificent blue and gold royal robes. Beside him stood his trusted advisor, Lord Cato. The king slowly looked across the crowd. One woman, then another, until his eyes suddenly stopped on Nia. His expression changed. It was not the expression of a king admiring a beautiful woman. It was the expression of a man who had just seen a ghost. The king stared at Nia's wrist, at the cowrie bracelet. Then he raised his hand. Royal guards approached Nia. The crowd began whispering. Nia didn't understand what she had done. She was brought before the king. He asked where she had gotten the bracelet. Nia explained that it had belonged to her mother. The king became even more troubled. And then, in front of the entire kingdom, he announced something that shocked everyone. Nia would become his bride that very night. The marketplace girl, the poor basket maker, the woman nobody considered important, had suddenly been chosen by the king himself. But there was something Nia didn't know. The king had not chosen her because he loved her. He had chosen her because of a secret that had been buried inside the royal family for 20 years. That evening, Nia was taken into the palace. Royal servants dressed her in an elegant, deep blue gown, decorated with gold embroidery. They placed gold ornaments in her hair and prepared her for the ceremony. But Nia couldn't enjoy any of it. She had too many questions. Why had the king chosen her? Why had he reacted so strangely to her bracelet? And what had her mother possibly done inside the palace 20 years ago? Eventually, the king came to speak with her privately. He told Nia that something terrible had happened in the palace 2 decades earlier. His father, the previous king, had died suddenly. Before his death, the old king had spoken about a terrible curse. He believed that every king in their family would lose the person he loved most before reaching the age of 45. The current king was approaching that age. But the king's story didn't explain why he had chosen Nia. Then he revealed that Nia's mother had been inside the palace on the night the previous king died. Before Nia could ask more questions, the king gave her a warning. There was a room beside hers that she must never enter. No matter what she heard, no matter who called her, she was never to open that door. That night, the palace became silent. Nia tried to sleep, but sometime after midnight, she heard something, crying. At first, she thought she was dreaming. Then she heard it again. Someone was crying somewhere in the palace. Nia left her room and followed the sound down a dark corridor. The crying became louder, until she realized where it was coming from, the forbidden door. Nia stood before it. She remembered the king's warning, but then the crying stopped. Silence filled the corridor. Nia turned to leave, and then she heard someone whisper her name. It was a woman's voice, a voice she had heard many times in her dreams. It sounded like her mother. Nia stood frozen. The voice called her name again. Then it told her something that made her heart race. The king had lied to her. Nia reached for the door and opened it. Inside was not a person. It was a hidden chamber filled with ancient royal portraits. Nia slowly walked through the room. Then she saw something that brought her to a complete stop. A huge portrait of a young woman. Nia stared at the face. She knew it immediately. It was her mother. But beneath the portrait was an inscription that revealed something Nia had never known. Her mother, Amara, had been a daughter of the royal family. Nia's mother had been the king's older sister. Nia wasn't simply a poor village girl. She was royal blood. At that moment, Lord Cato appeared in the doorway. He had been watching over the secret for years. He finally told Nia the truth. 20 years earlier, the previous king had discovered that someone inside the palace was planning to overthrow him. The traitor was connected to a powerful family within the kingdom. Amara had discovered the truth and tried to expose the conspiracy. But before she could reveal everything, she disappeared. Everyone believed she had abandoned the kingdom, but that wasn't true. Amara had been forced into hiding to protect her newborn daughter. That daughter was Nia. Nia had spent her entire life believing that her mother had died and left her alone. Now she learned that her mother had sacrificed everything to keep her safe. But Cato revealed something even more frightening. The king had not chosen Nia because of the curse. Someone was trying to kill him, and the person behind it was still inside the palace. Cato quickly took Nia through a secret passage beneath the palace. They emerged inside the throne room. The king was standing near his throne when suddenly an arrow flew through the air. It struck him in the shoulder. The palace erupted into chaos. Guards rushed into the room. Nia and Cato looked toward the balcony. Then a man slowly stepped out of the shadows. He was one of the king's most trusted advisors. For years he had stood beside the king. For years he had pretended to protect the kingdom, but he was the real enemy. He confessed that he had been responsible for the death of the previous king. He had hunted Nia's mother. He had manipulated the royal family for years. And now, he intended to kill the current king and take control of Aderé. But there was one thing he had failed to destroy: the royal seal. Nia suddenly remembered her mother's bracelet. The king noticed it too. Inside the small cowrie bracelet was a tiny golden royal seal. Nia removed it and placed it against an ancient stone beside the throne. Something incredible happened. A hidden door opened inside the palace wall. Behind it was an ancient royal archive filled with documents, scrolls, and evidence of the traitor's crimes. The truth that had been buried for 20 years was finally exposed. The guards arrested the traitor, and for the first time, the people of Aderé learned what had truly happened to their former king and to Amara. But there was still one mystery: the curse. The king had believed that his family was destined to suffer because of an ancient supernatural curse. But Nia finally understood the truth. There had never been a magical curse. The old king's final warning had been misunderstood. He knew that betrayal, lies, and greed would eventually destroy the royal family. The curse was never magic. It was a warning. A kingdom built on lies would eventually destroy itself. And by exposing the truth, Nia had broken the curse. The next morning, the entire kingdom gathered in the palace courtyard. The truth about Amara was finally restored. Her name was cleared, and Nia was offered a place within the royal family. But Nia refused to become someone she wasn't. She didn't want to be treated differently simply because of her blood. She wanted to remain the woman she had always been, a woman who worked with her hands, a woman who knew the value of truth. The king respected her decision. Instead of making her a princess, he gave her something more meaningful. He appointed Nia as the guardian of the royal archives. She would become the keeper of the kingdom's history. From that day forward, no one would be able to erase the truth again. And the strange wedding? It was never truly about romance. The king had publicly called Nia his bride because ancient royal law required him to recognize her royal bloodline before revealing the truth. So the poor basket maker who had entered the palace wearing worn sandals did not leave as a queen. She left as something far more important. She became the woman who saved a kingdom by uncovering the truth. Years later, people still told the story of Nia. They told their children about the poor girl who became the king's bride for one night. And whenever the children asked why the king had chosen a poor basket maker instead of one of the wealthy women of the kingdom, their grandparents would smile and say, "Sometimes the person who appears to have nothing is carrying the one thing a kingdom needs most, the truth." And if you enjoyed Nia's story, tell us in the comments. If you were Nia, would you have opened the forbidden door after hearing your mother's voice? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next African folktale. Because every story has a secret, and sometimes the greatest secrets are hidden in the most unexpected places.